necessary nor sufficient to fire the weapon. The trigger is the device that initiates the firing.
Here's what I'm trying to say. And I appreciate your, going down this road of hypotheticals with me. But if pushing one button and holding a trigger is a machine gun, then a device that works by pushing the barrel, the front of the gun, essentially, I don't know about these things, and holding the trigger, seems again to me to essentially do the same thing. And that is how everybody uses these devices. Like, I mean, maybe you could use the device differently, but the entire point of this device is that you exert forward pressure and you have your finger on the trigger and then a torrent of bullets shoots out. So I don't understand why it's any different.
Heaven help us all with this. That is Sonia Sotomayor from the oral arguments. Can I just say, the feeling that I get when I listen to this is the same feeling that I would get if I have a dram of moonshine or something, except without the benefit of alcohol. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just, what in God's green earth did I just hear? Again, Justice Sotomayor, the oral arguments in Garland v. Cargill, which is, for those who maybe don't know what that case means, that's the bump stock case, right? That's the bump stock case. And if you're unfamiliar with the case, Michael Cargill, who's going to join us in just a moment, he's the owner of Central Texas Gun Works, right? And he got 2 bump stocks. This was like a few years ago, had to surrender him to the ATF, and then he immediately filed suit in Western District of Texas challenging the rule, and we're glad that he did. He joins us now via Skype. I saw the picture. First off, Michael, thank you for fighting the good fight, my friend. I saw the photo of you going towards SCOTUS, the Supreme Court building this morning. I mean, it is on. I want to ask you first, I mean, welcome to the show, but how do you feel it went today? What was your general impression?
I thought it went really good. I thought my attorney did the best he possibly could in, just fighting off, crazy things that were coming from some of the justices there. He did a great job of, handling their hypothetical questions and they're just weird things and trying to get them to understand how guns actually work.
Yeah. And so the way that I understand it, I was looking at SCOTUS blog and looking at some of the live tweets of what the justices were saying, and then of course we were listening in on the audio. It seems like particularly the progressive justices don't even understand the mechanics of how, even excluding the bump stock, they don't even understand the mechanics of how a firearm, what makes the bullet come out in layman's terms. And right. I'm listening to the responses that they had to your attorney. And at one point, Kane and I were looking at each other like, we're gonna jump off my roof. This is just that. God love your attorney, because this man had so much patience, had more patience than anybody I've ever heard. But it came down to like function, and I think it was Justice Gorsuch that made the observation. Like people can squeeze the trigger, you can't function it. Like you can't. That's the person. It's like the same. It's a huge difference, and it seemed like that's what the focus was on for like 2 hours.
Yes, the entire day was all about the function of the trigger. One action of the trigger, one round goes out, that's a semi-automatic. An action of the trigger, more than one round goes out, that's a machine gun. It was hard to get them to understand, a few of them to understand exactly how machine guns work, how triggers work, and the fact you need an auto sear to make that work. It was just really frustrating, but I think my attorney did a wonderful job in explaining that and laying it all out.
Yeah, and it seemed like I think Sotomayor was arguing or intimating somehow that the rate of fire with a semi-auto using a bump stock is the exact same, as a fully automatic, as a machine gun. That's what I was hearing from them. Are you happy that, because the case, you're obviously taking issue with the statutory interpretation that the ATF is applying to this. And I saw some people saying, oh, well, why didn't Cargill make this about a huge fight about the Second Amendment? But after, Michael, hearing those judges' interpretations or understanding of the mechanics of this, aren't you glad that they're not making like a whole determination about all of Second Amendment? Because, it seems like they're very limited in their knowledge.
That's correct. If we would have gone down that road, that's a whole nother animal. We've been at another 2 hours. We still would have been sitting there right now trying to explain this. So we don't want to go down the road talking about the Second Amendment. Just focus on, the definition of what a machine gun is, and then focus on And I'm actually surprised they didn't bring up the fact that the ATF, an agency within the federal government, cannot create a right law. You know, so I think they're set on that.
Yeah.
There's a possibility we could get a 7-3 decision out of this. There's a possibility we can get a, something else, 6-4. So we'll see what happens.
The case is submitted. When do you? Because usually it's in the summer that they come back with their.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 6-3. Yeah.
Yeah. So the case is submitted, from what I understand. Usually, when do you expect the decision from the justices? Because I know I think it's in the summers when it's SCOTUS season.
Correct. So there's a possibility we could hear something as early as May. We could hear something back in June. They're going to go back and forth and decide what they think about this, and I think they already know. Just judging by the questions that were asked, I think we kind of know which way everyone's leaning on this court.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Like particularly Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Barrett and Justice Gorsuch, is because they were the ones, to me, that seemed to be going back to how it is that the ATF can essentially do Congress's job in creating law, and knowing what, how the pistol brace thing was determined. Is that giving you confidence in how they're going to perhaps come down on this aspect of on that with bump stocks?
Yes, to me it was all about the questions that were not asked. They didn't ask about the ATF itself and creating right law. That was not asked. So I'm confident that they're going to side with my attorneys, with my side on that argument. And so now I think the big whole thing was about machine guns. What's the definition of machine gun? And clearly, what we heard today is we heard a justice at the very end there just going so far left that it didn't make any sense whatsoever, to the point that it was frustrating that we need to take this justice out to the gun range and teach her how to shoot.
Yeah. And I want to clarify myself too, because the quote about the torrent of bullets, that audio that we played, that was Justice Jackson and not Sotomayor. So I want to make sure, Ketanji Brown Jackson, I want to make sure I get that correct. We're talking to our friend Michael Cargill, who was in before Supreme Court. Not everybody can say that. He was arguing rights before the Supreme Court on this decision. I know some of these justices, obviously they have poker faces, but I was encouraged to hear, as you said, you were thinking more of the questions that weren't asked as opposed to those that were. And for those who don't know, this is about the bump stock issue. And what gets me about this is that the argument has always been in making you turn over your property to the government that this somehow changes the function of a firearm, when it does not. And it was the same argument that they used for pistol braces. It's the same. They think that you can just attach, this item on, and it immediately changes the cycling, the rate of fire, all of the mechanics. And clearly it doesn't. But that's the crux of this. That's what kicked this all off for those who haven't been following since the beginning.
Right. They were focusing on the rate of fire. They were focusing on a lot of different things, instead of, let's go to the basics here. Let's go back to, civics. Let's go back to, what is the definition of a machine gun? How does a machine gun work? What are the mechanics of a machine gun? Is a person the machine gun? Or we're talking about the trigger that actually makes the more than one round go out. And that's what it's all about. And, we can't get too far away from that. If anything else, we need to go back to Congress, and Congress needs to change the definition of what a machine gun is. And they haven't done that. They haven't touched this at all. So it's clear the definition of what a machine gun is. And that is, if I pull that trigger, one action of the trigger, the action of the trigger, more than one round goes out, that is a machine gun. And that's what we're faced with today. And that's what the Supreme Court is going to have to look at.
Yeah. And that was the other clarification that they had been discussing. We're talking with Michael Cargill. What I noticed with this case as well, and I tell people that these are usually formulas, and you can, whether it's, bump stock today, it could be a different variable tomorrow. If something like this is allowed to stand, what stops any government agency? What stops them from saying, okay, well, now we're just going to basically reinterpret the definition of semi-auto, or include semi-auto in full auto. We're just going to reinterpret the definition of this without any pushback or any kind of legislation from Congress, or without any oversight at all whatsoever. And that's what you're challenging.
Right. And what I've been trying to explain to people is the reason we didn't go down the road of the Second Amendment issue. One, my attorneys are not Second Amendment attorneys. They're constitutional attorneys. And then the other thing is the fact that, we need to focus on, it's a bigger picture. It's not just about firearms. It's not just about guns. It's about an administrative agency.
Yes.
Can this agency, whether it's the EPA, whether it's OSHA, whatever agency you pick, U.S. Commerce Department, can they create a right law? Oh, do they need Congress to do that? And let's go back to the basics of Civics 101. How does a bill become law? A bill becomes law because a bill is made in Congress. Someone writes that bill, they vote on that bill, it goes to committee, it goes to both houses of Congress there. It goes, they vote on it, they pass it, it goes to the president signs it, and that's how it becomes law. Not because an agency within the federal government creates a right law.
That's exactly right. We saw that too, like over the pandemic when you had the CDC issue lease rent. You didn't get a moratorium on the tax you had to pay on your property, but people who had renters, renters got a moratorium on having to pay rent for that property, and the CDC, and that was overturned because, to your point, an agency, a government agency, no oversight, no accountability, they can't do the job that Congress does. So until this time, Michael, until we get a determination from the Supreme Court, you're in this it's a legal purgatory when it comes to ownership of bump stocks, correct?
That's correct. And even when the Supreme Court decide this case, we're still fighting another case. We're fighting two cases at the same time. So we have the case in the United States Supreme Court to decide whether or not, can Congress can the ATF create a right law? Mm-hmm. And then, what's the definition of machine gun? And then we have to go back to the lower court and fight the lower court, because that lower court that judge has said that, what? Hey, Michael Cargill, you won the case, but we're not going to give you any relief whatsoever. Do I get my bump stocks back? He didn't say. Are all bump stocks legal? He didn't say. So he didn't give me any relief whatsoever. So we're still going to have to fight this case. Even when we win the United States Supreme Court, we still have to fight it in the lower court still today.
It's going to be interesting to see who is in the majority on this. And I would love to have you back, because if this ban really, if this is allowed to stand, we're going to see, I would imagine we will see a flurry of other restrictions coming out from the ATF on firearm owners. I think this is just maybe the second step after pistol braces. We'll start seeing more of that from the ATF, and with this current administration, I think we'd see it probably before fall. Honestly, Michael Cargill, I would love to have you back. We got to talk about this more. We'll await the decision from the Supreme Court, but we appreciate you doing this because you're taking on a fight that benefits every American, and you're right there at the tip of the spear. So thank you, my friend. God bless you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I love you. And as always, more guns equals less crime.
There you go. Right there. Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate you.